One day he's going to realize it. Not when you're standing in front of him. Not when you're begging him to choose you. Not when you're sending another message, explaining your feelings, or trying to convince him that what you had was real. He'll realize it when you're gone, when your name stops lighting up his phone, when your voice is no longer part of his everyday life. When he looks around and discovers that the woman who used to care so deeply about him no longer cares whether he stays or leaves, that's when it's going to hit him. He didn't just lose a woman. He lost a woman he may never be able to replace. And the hardest part, it won't be losing your attention. It will be realizing that he had your heart while you were still learning how to protect it. You gave him chances. You gave him understanding. You forgave things that hurt you. You stayed through moments when leaving would have been easier. You believed in him during seasons when he didn't even believe in himself, and maybe he got comfortable. Maybe he started thinking your love was guaranteed. Maybe he confused your patience with weakness. Maybe he thought that because you kept coming back, you would always be there. But there comes a moment when a woman gets tired of explaining her worth to someone who should have recognized it without being told. And when that moment comes, something changes. She stops chasing. She stops arguing. She stops asking, why don't you love me the way I love you? She stops trying to force someone to see what they have. And she becomes quiet. Not because she has nothing to say, because she finally understands that she shouldn't have to say it anymore. See, some men don't understand the value of a woman while they have unlimited access to her. They understand it after the access disappears. They don't miss the arguments. They miss the woman who cared enough to have them. They don't miss the texts. They miss knowing somebody was thinking about them. They don't miss the attention. They miss the feeling of being deeply known by someone. They don't miss your presence in the room. They miss the peace you brought into their life. And that's something you need to understand. You were never replaceable because of what you did for him. You were irreplaceable because of who you were while you were doing it. Anybody can give attention. Anybody can say, I love you. Anybody can show up when everything is easy. But not everybody knows how to love somebody through difficult seasons. Not everybody knows how to encourage a person without losing themselves. Not everybody can see potential in someone and still maintain their own standards. Not everybody knows how to love deeply without becoming desperate. That was your difference. And he may not recognize that difference today. But time has a way of teaching lessons that people refuse to learn when they had the opportunity. One day he may meet someone else. And she may be beautiful. She may be intelligent. She may be successful. She may give him attention. But something will still feel different because you weren't special simply because you looked good beside him. You were special because of the way you made him feel understood. You remembered the little things. You noticed when his energy changed. You could tell when something was wrong, even when he said, I'm fine. You celebrated his victories. You encouraged his dreams. You stood beside him when life wasn't giving him reasons to celebrate, and maybe he didn't appreciate it. Maybe he thought that kind of woman was everywhere until he discovered that it wasn't. That's when regret starts. Regret doesn't always arrive immediately. Sometimes regret arrives months later. Sometimes years later. Sometimes it arrives when he's sitting alone at night and remembers the woman who once would have answered his call without hesitation. Sometimes it arrives when he has a bad day and realizes the person he used to talk to is no longer available. Sometimes it arrives when something good happens and he instinctively wants to tell you. Then he remembers. You're not his anymore. And that silence can be louder than any argument you ever had. But listen carefully. Your goal should never be to make him regret losing you. Your goal should be to become so secure in yourself that his regret no longer determines your happiness. That is the real victory. Because if you spend your life waiting for him to realize what he lost, you are still giving him control over your emotions. You are still making your healing dependent on his understanding. You are still waiting for someone else to confirm your value. And your value was never supposed to depend on whether he recognized it. You don't become valuable because someone chooses you. You are valuable before anyone chooses you. You don't become beautiful because someone compliments you. You don't become worthy because someone finally commits. You don't become enough because somebody stopped taking you for granted. You were enough before he arrived, and you will be enough after he leaves. That is the mindset you have to carry, because sometimes the biggest mistake a woman makes is trying to convince a man not to lose her. Let him make his choice. Let him show you who he is. Let his actions speak. You cannot build a healthy relationship by constantly reminding someone how badly they should treat you. If a man truly wants you in his life, he should not need to lose you completely before he understands your importance. And if he does lose you because he refused to appreciate you, let that lesson belong to him. Your lesson is different. Your lesson is learning not to abandon yourself just because someone else did. Think about how many times you stayed when your heart was asking you to leave. Think about how many times you accepted less because you were afraid that asking for more would push him away. Think about how many times you silenced your needs because you didn't want to seem difficult. You were trying so hard to keep the relationship alive that you forgot to ask whether the relationship was keeping you alive. There is a difference between fighting for love and fighting against reality. Sometimes love requires patience, but sometimes love requires boundaries. Sometimes you have to say, I love you, but I cannot continue hurting myself to prove it. That sentence can change everything. Because the moment you stop sacrificing your peace just to keep someone comfortable, you start seeing your relationship differently. You start seeing yourself differently. And suddenly, the woman who once waited for his message is building a life that doesn't revolve around his response. She starts waking up with purpose. She starts taking care of herself. She starts pursuing her dreams again. She starts laughing again. She starts going places without wondering whether he will be there. She starts becoming the woman she was before heartbreak convinced her to shrink. And that transformation is powerful. Because when a woman stops chasing someone who doesn't appreciate her, she doesn't become cold. She becomes clear. She learns that love should feel like partnership, not persuasion. She learns that communication should go both ways. She learns that consistency matters more than temporary affection. She learns that apologies without changed behavior are just repeated promises. And most importantly, she learns that she cannot love somebody into becoming the person they refuse to become. That realization may hurt, but it will also free you. Because you stop asking, what can I do to make him love me? And you start asking, does the way he loves me deserve the woman I have become? That is a completely different question. And once you start asking it, everything changes. You stop measuring your worth by his attention. You stop checking whether he viewed your story. You stop wondering why he hasn't called. You stop creating excuses for inconsistent behavior. You stop interpreting crumbs as commitment. You stop celebrating the bare minimum. And eventually, you reach a place where peace becomes more attractive than potential. That's when you become dangerous. Not to him, but to every situation that once depended on you having low standards, because now you know better. You know that being loved halfway is still being loved insufficiently. You know that chemistry without consistency creates confusion. You know that words without action create disappointment. And you know that someone can miss you deeply and still not be capable of giving you what you deserve. That last lesson is important because if he comes back one day Don't confuse his regret with his readiness. He might miss you. He might think about you. He might realize he made a mistake. He might even tell you that nobody has ever treated him the way you did. But words are easy when someone feels the consequences of their choices. What matters is whether his behavior has changed, because you are not looking for someone who misses you. You are looking for someone who values you. You are not looking for someone who fears losing you. You are looking for someone who knows how to keep you. And there is a difference. A man can be afraid of losing access to you without being prepared to build something meaningful with you. So never return simply because someone finally realizes what they lost. Return only if what they are offering now matches what you deserve, because you are not a backup plan. You are not the woman he gets to remember whenever every other option fails. You are not someone he gets to leave and return to whenever loneliness catches up with him. You are a whole person, and your heart deserves a home, not a waiting room. Maybe one day he will realize he lost the woman he could never replace. Maybe he will remember your kindness. Maybe he will remember your laugh. Maybe he will remember the way you believed in him. Maybe he will compare every new connection to what he once had with you. But by then, I hope something has changed. I hope you are no longer waiting for that moment. I hope you are too busy becoming everything you were meant to become, because the greatest ending is not him regretting losing you. The greatest ending is you no longer needing his regret to feel valuable. And when you reach that place, whether he comes back or never does, you win, because you finally chose yourself. And maybe that is the moment he finally understands. Not when you were crying. Not when you were asking him to communicate. Not when you were standing in front of him, hoping he would finally recognize your value. He understands when he sees that you are no longer waiting. Because there is something powerful about a woman who has stopped waiting for permission to move forward. She doesn't need revenge. She doesn't need to make him jealous. She doesn't need to post pictures hoping he notices. She doesn't need to prove that she is doing better. She simply does better, quietly, genuinely, completely. And that kind of transformation cannot be faked. One day, he may look at you and realize that the woman he thought would always be available has become a woman he can no longer reach. The woman who once needed his attention now has her own direction. The woman who once questioned herself now trusts herself. The woman who once waited for him to choose her has finally chosen herself. And that is when he understands the difference between losing someone and losing someone irreplaceable. You can replace a person's presence. You cannot easily replace their impact. You can find another conversation. You can find another date. You can find another relationship. But you cannot simply duplicate history. You cannot recreate the moments. You cannot manufacture the connection. You cannot force another woman to carry the exact memories you created together. And sometimes, that is what hurts the most. He may find someone new, but she won't know the version of him that you knew. She won't know the struggles you witnessed. She won't know the dreams you encouraged. She won't know the insecurities you helped him overcome. She won't know the man behind the image. You did. And maybe he didn't appreciate that access when he had it. But losing someone who truly knew, you can leave a different kind of emptiness, because being understood is rare. Being accepted is rare. Being loved while someone sees your imperfections is rare. And when you lose something rare, you eventually realize it was never ordinary. But here is where your power comes in. Do not spend your life hoping he reaches that realization, because your future is too valuable to be placed on hold for somebody else's awakening. Let him learn. Let him remember. Let him wonder. Let him live with the consequences of the choices he made. You have another assignment. Your assignment is to rebuild the woman who became exhausted trying to save something that was supposed to be a partnership. You have to give yourself the same patience you gave him, the same forgiveness, the same encouragement, the same loyalty. You spent so much time telling him, I believe in you. Now tell yourself the same thing. I believe in me. I believe I can start again. I believe I can love again. I believe I can build something healthier. I believe I can walk away from what hurts me without questioning my worth. I believe that what is meant for me will not require me to destroy myself to keep it. That mindset changes everything, because once you truly believe in yourself, you stop begging people to see your value. You start allowing people to demonstrate whether they deserve access to you. And access to should mean something. Your time means something. Your energy means something. Your attention means something. Your heart means something. Stop handing those things to people who treat them like they are unlimited. You don't owe everyone access to the best parts of you. Some people earn that privilege, and some people lose it. That isn't cruelty. That's maturity. There is a season for giving. There is also a season for letting go. And sometimes letting go is the most loving thing you can do, not only for yourself, but for the other person. Because when you stop rescuing someone from the consequences of their choices, they finally have to face those choices. Maybe he needed to lose you to understand himself. Maybe he needed to experience your absence to recognize your presence. Maybe he needed to see that your love wasn't something he could take for granted forever. But whether he learns that lesson or not, don't let his lesson become your burden. You don't need to stand outside his life waiting for the chapter where he regrets losing you. Close the book. Start writing your own. But write a chapter where you wake up without checking your phone. Write a chapter where your confidence doesn't depend on someone's attention. Write a chapter where you stop accepting mixed signals. Write a chapter where you choose consistency over chemistry. Write a chapter where you choose peace over confusion. Write a chapter where you no longer confuse being wanted with being valued, because anybody can want you when it is convenient. The right person will value you even when loving you requires effort. The right person won't make you compete for basic respect. The right person won't keep you guessing about where you stand. The right person won't make you feel like you have to audition for a place in their life. And if someone makes you feel like you are too much simply because you have standards, remember this. You are not too much for the person who is right for you. You are simply asking the wrong person for something they are unwilling to give. Never reduce yourself to fit someone's emotional limitations. Never become smaller because someone is uncomfortable with your strength. Never silence your needs because someone calls them demanding. And never abandon your identity just to keep a relationship alive. Because if you have to lose yourself to keep someone, you have already lost too much. There will be days when you miss him. Don't be ashamed of that. Healing doesn't mean you never remember. Healing means the memory no longer controls your direction. You can miss someone and still move forward. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can remember the good and still accept that the relationship wasn't right for you. You can forgive someone without giving them another opportunity to hurt you. And you can wish someone well without inviting them back into your life. That is emotional maturity. Eventually, the pain becomes wisdom. The tears become strength. The rejection becomes redirection. The ending becomes a beginning. And the woman who once wondered why she wasn't enough finally understands something profound. She was never the problem, simply because someone failed to appreciate her. Sometimes people lose good things because they are not ready to recognize good things. Sometimes people destroy relationships because they haven't learned how to handle love. Sometimes people walk away from something valuable because they believe something better is waiting somewhere else. And sometimes they discover too late that what they were searching for was standing right in front of them. But by then, the woman has changed. She doesn't hate him. She doesn't need to punish him. She doesn't even need an apology. She simply knows that her life cannot be built around someone who already showed her they were willing to walk away. That's strength. Real strength isn't becoming heartless. Real strength is keeping your heart soft while becoming wise about who gets access to it. Don't let one person's inability to love you properly convince you that love isn't real. Don't let one bad relationship convince you that every relationship will end the same way. Don't let one man's rejection become your identity. You are still worthy. You are still beautiful. You are still capable of being deeply loved. You are still deserving of consistency. You are still deserving of respect. You are still deserving of someone who looks at you and knows, I don't want to lose her. But before you find that person, become the woman who knows, I don't want to lose myself. That is the foundation. Because the strongest relationship you will ever build begins with the relationship you have with yourself. When you respect yourself, you recognize disrespect faster. When you value yourself, you stop negotiating your basic needs. When you love yourself, you stop begging someone else to complete what was never broken. And when you become comfortable walking away from what doesn't serve you, you stop fearing abandonment. You realize that losing someone isn't always the worst thing that can happen. Sometimes losing the wrong person is how you finally find yourself. So if he walked away, let him walk. If he stopped calling, let the phone stay silent. If he chose someone else, let him make that choice. If he didn't appreciate you, don't spend another year explaining why he should have. Your life is not a courtroom. You don't have to prove your innocence to someone who misunderstood your value. Keep moving. Keep growing. Keep becoming. Because one day, he may realize that he lost the woman he could never replace. But I want you to reach a point where that realization doesn't matter anymore. Where you don't need him to come back. Where you don't need him to apologize. Where you don't need him to admit that he was wrong. Where you don't need him to say, you were the best thing I ever had, because you already know who you are. And when you know who you are, someone's inability to recognize you cannot reduce you. Let him remember, let him wonder, let him realize. You keep going. Build the life you were too distracted to build while trying to hold on to him. Take care of your mind, take care of your body, take care of your dreams. Reconnect with the people who love you. Work on your purpose, log in, travel, learn, grow, become so deeply connected to your own life that you no longer measure happiness by whether someone else is in it. And then, if he ever looks back, he'll see something he never expected. He won't see the woman who was waiting for him. He'll see the woman who became whole without him. He'll see the woman who no longer needs his validation. He'll see the woman who stopped chasing and started choosing. He'll see the woman who learned that her love is valuable. He didn't lose someone who was replaceable. He lost someone who loved him sincerely, someone who believed in him, someone who gave him chances, someone who saw beyond his flaws, someone who wanted the best for him, someone who would have stood beside him if he had known how to value what was standing beside him. And maybe he will regret it. Maybe he won't. But either way, you keep walking, because your story cannot end at the moment someone decides they don't want you. That is not the ending. That is the turning point. Your life begins again when you realize that being rejected by someone does not mean you are rejected by life. There is still love ahead. There is still purpose ahead. There is still happiness ahead. There are still doors you haven't opened. There are still people you haven't met. There are still versions of yourself you haven't discovered. So don't spend your future staring at a closed door. Turn around. Look at the road in front of you and walk with your head high, Walk knowing that you loved honestly. Walk knowing that you gave what you could. Walk knowing that you don't have to chase what is meant to stay. And if he ever realizes what he lost, let that be his story. Your story is bigger. Your story is about becoming the woman who no longer needs to be chosen because she has finally chosen herself. And when you choose yourself, you stop asking, why wasn't I enough for him? You start asking, why did I ever believe I needed him to prove that I was enough? That question will change your life because the moment you understand your worth, you stop negotiating with people who cannot see it. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop waiting, you stop shrinking, and you start living. So let him realize, let him remember. Let him wonder what happened to the woman who once cared so deeply. She didn't disappear. She evolved. She became stronger. She became wiser. She became more peaceful. She became more selective. She became the woman she was always supposed to be. And maybe one day, when he finally understands that he lost the woman he could never replace, you'll be somewhere else entirely, not waiting, not watching, not hoping, living. And that will be the moment you realize something even more powerful. You didn't lose him. You found yourself.